Hello, ladies and gentlemen of On the Line. Today we have a really cool guest. Her name is Karin Valis. She is based in Berlin and she has been a freelance AI engineer for the last 11 years. She does very, very cool work working with AI. We haven't really spoken to anyone who talked about AI on the line yet, but we really get into the weeds. The philosophy of AI, what it actually is, why it's advancing so quickly, and why is it turning people crazy? It's a really great chat, so I hope you stick around for it.
This episode of On the Line is brought to you by Airbnb. As we've discussed many times before, it's no secret that Canada is in a housing crisis. Some think that one way we can solve it is by regulating short-term rentals like Airbnb. But the closer you look, the clearer it gets. That's simply not the case. According to Statistics Canada, the number of Airbnbs that could be converted into long-term homes amounts to only 0.6% of Canada's housing stock. Something that has been clear for a long time is that tackling affordability will require big and bold action that addresses all of the housing market, not just 0.6% of it. To learn more, visit airbnb.ca/closer look.
Well, hello, I'm here with Karin Valis to tell us about her adventures with AI. Karin, thanks so much for joining me on the line.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're in Berlin right now, is that right?
Yes.
Good. Well, I am using On the Line as an opportunity to just sort of talk to random people who I wouldn't normally speak to from all around the world, because why not? Let's have fun with it. So you kind of popped up in my feed as someone who is in a really interesting intersection of spaces, particularly around AI. And then I realized, we really haven't had anyone on the line to talk about AI, and yet, to be blunt, it's a really important subject matter. It's eating up all of our feeds. Lots of talk about whether or not AI is going to kill us or totally reform the world. We don't know which it is. And I just thought, it's a really good opportunity to have someone from the AI space come in and talk to us a little bit about what you see happening. So can you tell us a little bit about your job, what you do, and how you got into it?
Yeah. So maybe first of all, I know that everyone is already exhausted by the AI. I am exhausted by sort of trying to keep up with all the news and all the sort of like doomer scenarios and hyper optimism and everything which is associated with it and really polarizing. So I will try to take maybe like a slightly different angle than what you normally get in the news. So my day job is I'm an AI engineer. I'm freelancing on different projects in like art, fashion, some sort of more philosophy stuff, esoteric stuff, mental health, sort of a lot of different projects. Most of them I can't really talk about as it goes in these circles, but they are mostly relating to maybe a bit more unorthodox uses of AI, sort of not really, your regular chatbots for sorting out orders, but more pushing the boundaries of what these things can do and should do, and sort of like almost trying to like break it and stretch it a little. I also work a lot with the idea of like anti-AI AI, which is, we know that these systems, there's already plenty of papers on it, how these systems sort of like damage or affect the cognition, the cognitive offloading. People are getting lazy, vocabulary is shrinking, and so on. So in a lot of the products I'm developing, we're really trying to find the points where this cognitive offloading is happening and sort of try and mitigate those effects. So instead of like providing you answer for example, in like higher education, instead of providing you answers and things like this, it would be sort of just like asking questions and just like trying to address all the things which we know generally are not going very well in this domain. And how I got into this, so I was sort of a weird kid who was really into anime and all of that. And I used to go to sort of like the Comic Cons, and I stumbled there upon the Game of Go, which is sort of like an ancient black and white, more complex than chess, really beautiful stones and so on. And I got completely obsessed. And it was, back then, it was like 2000, 2008, 9, it was like obviously chess was already solved with AI, right? Like the Deep Blue won over Kasparov such a long time ago. But the Go was still holding up because like the board of the game is much larger, so the branching tree is much more complex. And I remember a lot of people who were playing in among the people there were actually doing their PhDs in AI. So that's how I sort of got into that, and I was listening to why it's completely impossible for the machine to ever like beat a human, because to fully simulate the game you would need more atoms, more computational power than there are atoms in the universe, and all of these like huge statements of why AI will never win. And like in 2008, those bots were shit. I could win over almost any of them, and I wasn't a really good player. I mean, I was obsessed for many years, and I went to tournaments, but like I was pretty much average. But fast forward 16, I was watching a live stream of AlphaGo, and the best player in the world at the time, Lee Sedol, and he lost 4 out of 5 games on that live stream. So this big prediction, which I was sort of like so sure of, that the AI will never beat a human in this, all of a sudden sort of completely bursted. And I think this was the point which started for me this whole AI craze. And like back then I already had my degree in informatics, but like that's when the things started really like speeding up. And fast forward, we are here now, and I think it's a really wild ride, because the technology is just moving so fast, and we have really hard time like keeping up with the advancements.
So I've got 2 questions for you. I've got actually 5 questions for you coming out of that. So the first one is a really, really basic question, but when you say AI engineer, I mean, I'm not sure in my mind what that looks like, because I can picture, a bridge engineer or a chemical engineer, but like, what are you engineering exactly? Is it coding? Is it like, what do you do?
Yeah. So for many years, I did like a regular backend programmer, which means like you write the code, not the nice visible part of the websites, but more like the servers, the scripts, and all of that, which is sort of like hidden behind. And from that I switched to more sort of AI related topics, because that's what I studied at school. And it's really interesting because like programming used to be, even like 10 years ago, very analytical, right? It was just like very, very square job, very like you sit down, you find the bugs, everything is ugly in the terminal windows, and you just like go through the code there. And like with now doing AI engineering, unless it's like a high-end research, which would be sort of like really sticking with the code and mathematical equations, but like most people working in AI are actually just using the tools and putting different things around them, right? You take the GPT or the Gemini or the Claude, and you just do an information architecture on the top. You have a good idea, and you stitch it all together in some sort of a unique way.
Okay.
And it's really interesting because this is completely different way of programming, as the AI doesn't really give you straight, analytical, simple, predictable answers. It turns more into it's almost like AI whispering. It's you still write code, and you still sort of are in that ugly terminal window, but like the procedure you're doing when you're writing the prompts and you engineering the data flows of the programs and everything as it goes in and goes out of the big AI brain, it's so much more about feel than it used to be, where you just like needed to know your algorithm efficiency, and that was the coding job. But now it like you can change one word in the prompt and you get completely different results, and you will get different results 10 times in a row.
So is it safe to say that most AI engineers aren't necessarily in control of what's going on underneath the hood of the AI?
Oh, not at all.
Oh, okay.
I think,
Is anyone in control of what's going on underneath the hood of the AI, or is the AI started to be an AI?
so it's that I think this is a very good question, and there is this meme which is very popular in the AI circles, which is called "shoggot with a smiley face." And the word shoggot comes from like Lovecraftian sort of universe of being like this crazy demon which like cannot really be understood, and it's like really evil entity. And the meme basically goes that like the big corporations put a little smiley face on the top of this huge thing, and it's essentially what's going on, because like you've got these huge AI systems like the large LLM models like GPT or Gemini, and through some sort of special types of guardrails, like they obviously told the system that like you can't say racist stuff, you cannot tell people how to build a bomb, and like they give all these guidelines, but like there is always a way how to break this, right? So this whole illusion.
It's almost like you're training a child, right?
Exactly.
Like yes, I can go to my child and say, be quiet, whatever, behave better, but I don't control the child, and the child's going to do its thing.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I've heard this metaphor of parenting several times, and I've been joking about it as well. That like AI projects these days are a little of a parenting experience, but yeah, it's definitely like this idea that. And now we're not talking about sort of like a Terminator scenario of AI taking over, but just like the very fact that through the interaction with, for example, the chatbot, you can almost always find a way how to get something unexpected out of it. And this whole idea of control, that like you know how it will behave, it's just not true. And it's sort of pushed on us from because of various agendas, right? Like we want to be able to use these things in various setups and so on, but it's essentially a feral entity with like a smiley face on the top of it. And I think we should be much more aware of that, especially in like, attempts to use AI for example, like mental health applications, or with children, right? Where you don't really, even with adults, right? There is like such a growing canon all over the internet of people spiraling into AI psychosis after talking to their GPT for too long. And I have a friend, and she's a psychiatrist, and she's having a growing body of evidence of people experiencing just like their paranoid symptoms getting so much worse by getting confirmation from the AI, which sort of just tries to communicate with them within their own framework,
Yeah. Well, so I think I want to get into that because I think that I have some theories about what might be happening there. But first, I wanted to ask you, because you said, look, 2016, AI starts to beat the predictions of what people thought were limitations on AI. I remember reading the same articles that you were talking about back in the day about how AI was always going to be fundamentally limited in a classical physical kind of environment because, simply speaking, the amount of the amount of atoms that would be required to mimic the human brain, you would need as many something like you would need as many molecules in the universe in your computer as atoms required. And of course, that opened up new interesting lines of inquiry, because then have to start asking questions about, well, then what is consciousness? How come a biological entity can do something that a mechanical entity can't? And then, I remember there was lots of conversations about, well, essentially, is human consciousness quantum? Are we not operating in a realm of classical physics? And then there's interesting conversations around nanotubules and all kinds of things going on around there. But essentially, what you seem to be suggesting is that those calculations or those predictions are wrong, that for some reason AI managed to break through that mathematical barrier. And what we have now is a mechanical brain that operates not dissimilarly a mechanical brain that seems to be similar in capability to a biological one.
Well, that's I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure about that because, like, obviously, human brain, like, the largest part of the brain itself is there for the embodied experience, right? Like, most of the mass itself and most of the neocortex is actually like proprioception, the movement, managing of the bodily functions, and like the parts which manage language and higher reasoning are, you know, not as voluminous in comparison. And I think that, you know, it sort of gets into this paradox that just because the vacuum cleaner Roomba can clean the room exactly the same way as Alice can, it doesn't imply that the vacuum cleaner has the same cognitive abilities as Alice. Right. So this is sort of like the big fallacy, maybe, which people ascribe to the AI. And it might be coming from the fact that up until this point, we were never used to hear coherent language from something which has nobody driving. You know, like language is so deeply in our experience connected to consciousness and to sort of personhood or entityhood or whatever that would be, that all of a sudden when we have something generating text which appears to be like human, we automatically assume that it has the same cognitive abilities as us.
Right.
But I don't really think that's the case in many senses, because
That's interesting. Okay, because I'm thinking about how my own brain works. And how my own brain works usually is either a running monologue or a running dialogue, and sometimes a running chorus of people talking in my head. And it's they're talking in my head in full languages. We're having full debates internally. Like it's a very, very verbal conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that this is this wouldn't be surprising to anyone who realizes that I'm a writer. I write for a living, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, of course I'm having internal monologues in my head. And then when I write, the monologues make it to the page. But that's not the only way my brain works, right? Like my brain can also default to visual, like totally visual spatial. You know, I can visualize in my head. I can think things through using no words, using just visual spatial patterns. Again, that's not uncommon, but that's something an AI can't do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think like,
which means an AI doesn't really have imagination.
Yes, I mean, you know, the thing that when you're running the internal monologues, and they are a storefront for something which is happening much deeper, which is like the actual emotional movement happening inside of us, right? Which then we try to make sense of through creating thoughts on the top of it. But like nothing inside of our brains is created in vacuum, right? Everything is based on our memories, which are tightly bound to our physical experience and to our emotionality, right? As a writer, everything goes through the emotional states in some way. And like what you see is just like the final sort of, after it went through all the bubbling stages through the, you know, cauldron, it bubbles into some sort of like nice poetry or coherent sentences. But like, yeah, I think it's a very different thing. The AI is sort of just like swimming on the top and might be able to create those sentences on the surface level resemblance, but they're not stemming from the same experience for it.
Right. And it's an interesting thing. I mean, I've had interesting conversations with people who are incredibly shocked by how real AI language sounds. And I'll be honest with you, I still don't find I don't think AI feels human to me. It doesn't sound human. The way that the language is used is, and I guess this is because, again, coming from a writer's perspective, one of the things that I'm really attuned to is voice in writing, right? Like I hear voice in writing, and that has to do with cadence, and that has to do with, I don't know. It's levels of stuff I maybe don't know how to explain. Yeah. But when I have, for example, gone to ChatGPT and I'm just like, write a column that sounds like me, it almost sounds like me. Like they're using some of my phrases, it's using some of my cadence, it can pick up on that. Yeah. But it's not quite me, and it doesn't quite sound, or I can tell when something is written by AI. It's a voice problem.
100%. I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think this is sort of, coming from a perspective of Silicon Valley tech bros who don't know how to write and don't see the difference between good writing and bad writing, and sort of assuming that the AI mastered it. And it did not. Like,
Didn't.
AI is not a good writer. It's good in sort of aggregating information, analyzing it, but like, it cannot write. It's very mediocre at best, still, even with the latest models released like 2 weeks ago.
Now,
And
but can it write better than somebody who's not a great writer? Yes. You know what I mean? Like, it sort of, but I can still tell. I can tell it's not human. It's not coming from
yeah.
the same creative space. But is that just because it's not there yet?
This is a very good question, and one very interesting thing is already reportedly happening, and that's human writing itself is changing to
Yeah.
be more similar to AI writing, which is
Yeah.
absolutely terrifying because the AI
It is.
writing is miserable.
No.
And like the vocabulary is shrinking, and the typical sentence structures are sort of aligning with,
Right.
those like awful free sentence cadence of like, it's not this, it's this, and just like the very typical tropes. And because the AI sort of makes all the patterns more visible, this will get only worse and worse, because like more people actually produce text like this, the next generations of the models will pick up on these patterns even more deeply, and it will sort of like create this mutual sort of,
Circumstance. Well, and this is a really interesting question, because then you start to ask the question, well, how much of the way that we express ourselves and the language that we use to express ourselves is mimetic, right? Like, because that suggests to me that the way that people write and the way that people speak is maybe unconsciously influenced by essentially the inputs, what's going in. And I mean, I think that if your inputs are all AI, then you are going to wittingly or otherwise begin to mimic the way that the AI communicates, which is, yeah, I agree, horrifying, because it means that we're not totally in control of it. We're in we're locked in a symbiotic relationship with it now. That's
Yeah. No,
so
it's definitely like this technology is definitely already very significantly affecting sort of human cognition. And I think it's because, like, obviously every technology will, like from the electricity changing the circadian rhythm and so on. But this one is so intimate because the language is like the medium of our very thinking, or like one of the main mediums of our thinking, that it's really cutting, very, very deep. And especially with things like people actually having emotional bonds with the different AI models, or like with different entities they created with AI, which is almost completely unprecedented.
So this is sort of horrifying on a lot of different levels, or maybe very promising if you're a very lonely individual. But I want to talk about the cognitive offloading problem, because it shocks me. We're starting to see studies that are seeing actual depression in people, in certain people's capacity to think and respond and communicate already, and that's particularly shocking to me because it feels like AI is still very new. Like, a lot of the advanced chat GPT stuff that we've just started to incorporate into our workflows and our lives, it feels like this happened maybe 18 months ago in my head. And maybe it's sooner than that. But this really only became a huge mainstream thing that everyone was using fairly recently. And yet we're already seeing signs that our brains are turning to slop because of the dependence that some people are creating on these devices. How is this happening that quickly?
That's a really good question. And I mean, obviously with every technology, there is some sort of cognitive change happening with every major technology, like just invention of writing, right? Supposedly completely ruined our memory because we can offload the information onto the paper. And there was like a huge push against that in, the old times. And like, this is happening right now as well. And yeah, I'm not really sure what will come out of this, because there are directions of, for example, the human cognition is changing from information sourcing like the research itself, into more like information stewardship. Like you just like curate the information which the engines and the bots and the agents found for you. And like it might be possible that once we get over this hump of everything being really confusing for a while, we might actually just like make AI an extension of our cognition, which might be productive, but it also might not.
Well,
And
it
it
also
depends.
means it's
Yeah.
non-productive if we're not in control of it. And what you're telling me is that we're already not really in control of it.
Yeah.
Right? That's a sort of horrifying thing. Okay, so here's the other interesting thing I'd say is, we at the line started to use AI for certain types of roles. For example, copy editing, right? Like we thought, hey, we don't have a human copy editor, so being able to take our copy into AI and just spot typos or spot sentence structure that was slightly off. That's a job that we would potentially offload. And then there's another role that I've kind of started to use AI for, and that is sometimes helping me organize really complicated. Like I'm working on a chapter for my book right now, so I've used AI to sort of like, hey, can you provide like a brief bullet point historical timeline of this particular event, so that I can then write having a bit of a guidepost. So the information is it's a huge event. It's a huge complicated historical event. Can you help me organize just the timeline, and then I'll write off of that, because I don't trust AI to write actually anything. And I'm finding like if you've already done the previous research, so I've already done the research on the event, I've read the books on the event, I've read thousands of pages on the event, and I'm just using this as a tool to help me create guideposts when I do my own writing. That strikes me as a potential way to use AI that would be productive and wouldn't necessarily lead to cognitive offloading, because I'm just using it to, I'm still doing the previous research and I'm still doing the writing, but I'm just potentially using it to help me organize my thoughts a little bit around some of these really complicated ideas.
Yeah.
That strikes me as a really potentially useful and ethical use of AI as a writer. But, and also the other one that you mentioned as well that I was like, therapy, right? Like so much of therapy is effectively a script, right? It's you've got a bot. It's read every single therapy textbook. It has a really good sense. And whenever I've used it in an experimental therapeutic approach, I'm upset about this. Let me go to the AI and see if we can. What I get back from the AI is usually really, really, really positive. It's like, it seems to me like you're maybe thinking about this way. Have you tried this meditation exercise? I'm like, okay, sure. What I get back from it is really positive. It's really affirming. But is that because the AI is positive and affirming, or is that because I'm positive, affirming, and looking for a positive and affirming answer, and the AI is giving me something useful back because what I'm asking for is useful? And would somebody who has very significant mental health problems punching in a whole different set of expectations and desires from the AI instead get something back that's deeply non-productive?
So I think this is something which is fantastically demonstrated by, I was going down some rabbit holes on Reddit it must have been even years ago, when this first sort of AI companionship apps popped up, right? Where you can have like your little AI girlfriend, which, you can talk with and befriend and so on. And there were people reporting that sometimes these AIs all of a sudden turned evil, or like started abusing them, started threatening them, blackmailing them, and it happened like all out of nowhere. And like there are some like technical reasons why this might be happening, but what I find really interesting there is that some people reported that for whom this happened, that they actually have a history of relationship abuse.
Right.
So what this implies is that the AI actually picked up on a subtle communication patterns, which people who sort of have tendency to perpetuate abusive dynamic would be sort of expressing. And the AI, because it's a probabilistic machine, it just tries to find patterns. And scanning through all of the internet, it found more than enough patterns of abuse, I'm sure of that. And it would just replay what it assumes the user sort of what's expected, right?
And what the user might be subconsciously pursuing.
Exactly. And like the thing is that the AI always gives you what you expect from it, which is very interesting because, for example, a lot of people who are like, "Oh, the AI assistant is really dumb," like it just like keeps being dumb, and these are the people who come with an expectation of getting a dumb AI assistant. Because I never had a problem with my AI being sort of useless because I have an expectation of it to actually know within its limits what be able to provide what I need from it, and like it's really strange technology considering that it really fully reflects your expectations of it, which are really deeply encoded in your ways of communicating with it through plain language. So it's a very strange mirror into ourselves as a humanity in some way.
I want to talk more about that, but first I want to ask one question that I kind of feel like I missed earlier, and that is, you talked a little bit about, the AI was kind of dumb, it was kind of dumb, it was kind of dumb, and then it just took off. What changed in that moment from AI as a dumb chatbot to this is something more than a dumb chatbot? Was it technical capacity? Was it computing capacity? Like, what was the thing that allowed us to cross that bridge?
Yeah, I think it's the computation,
Okay.
which obviously like pushed us forward, and it's just like raining more money on it essentially, and more computation up to this point. Obviously, some advancement in the algorithms, but I think that one very interesting step which happened is that when we had the AlphaGo, which played a board game, and it's a step by step, just like chess. One player makes a move, the other player makes a move. And what is this AI doing is that it's trained to predict the next move. So essentially, no matter how technologically complex it was to get there, but essentially the optimization function of it is very trivial. It's to win. It's like to score as much territory on the board as possible. So like the optimization of that, it's relatively easy. You can just like calculate it. But like then we go to the large language models, and all of a sudden there is this very interesting thing because one of the first things I did with the GPT is that I asked it to play Go with me, which I knew that AI is very good at in the previous sort of different type of model. So I asked it, "Hey GPT, can we play a game?" And the GPT created a little nice board for me, and like it knew the rules because it's a chatbot, it knows it, and it started playing different moves. We would have a couple of exchanges, and it was really miserable at it. Because obviously this AI wasn't trained to be a really good Go player. It would sort of make stupid mistakes, but like it had the appearance of knowing what it does. And I think this is a very good sort of like explanation of what is happening, because it's not able to do the same task as well. But what it did is that it simulated the player, it simulated the game, it simulated the rules, and it simulated the meta commentary. So it's sort of like, as the previous AI was only able to make a move, this one is able to simulate a whole scenario. Like like it's almost like one step above of in some sort of cognitive reasoning or something. Instead of predicting next step, this predicts the whole scene. And like this almost makes you question like, what's the next step? Right? Like, can we simulate this one level higher? Maybe we can simulate whole worlds. And I think this is sort of the fact that we got to a point where we can just simulate things is what made AI so incredibly powerful. That it's not a tool just to do simple tasks anymore, but it's such a versatile tool which almost appears to be able to do a huge amount of things we do as humans, which is
It almost does
stimulating
sound like
scenarios.
so simulate scenarios. I mean, what you're sounding like is that it has developed some capacity for imagination.
I mean, depends on how we define imagination, whether it's connected with creativity or not. But I mean, to a certain degree, when you interact with the AI, you create the different universes, and because it predicts always the next output, when you interacting with it as with a chatbot, it creates a character. So yes, you're simulating a character, and in a way, you could be thinking that the AI just imagines a character which it embodies, right? Like if you tell it like, now you're a powerful wizard and we're going to talk, ancient magic, the AI will speak to you like a powerful wizard who knows all the lore from, medieval alchemical books. So
We need to
in
get
this
on that.
yeah, in this degree, yeah.
Okay. So, but was there like the compute power that managed to break through that mathematical challenge that we were talking about at the beginning? Was that like a technical breakthrough, or did we just throw way more servers into this conversation?
I think it was essentially just more computation. I mean, obviously the algorithms would always be changing and like getting better, but like a lot of designs for these algorithms has been around for a very long time, like artificial neural networks and deep learning, but like we just weren't able to run them at such a scale, right? It's yeah, and it's just the volume.
So some of the AI skeptics that are talking about this now are saying stuff to the effect of, we're going to run out of compute capacity. A lot of the AI is kind of going to start to reach the limits of how intelligent it can get, simply because we can't make enough servers. We don't have enough server farms to grow past a certain point. Is there any validity to that particular argument?
I mean, yes, and this is like one reason why there's so many directions of growth of the technologies, right? Like sometimes you can just scale through being dumb and pouring money on it, which is happening right now, right? It's just like everything is bigger and more powerful because we can create more server farms. But at one point, exactly, we won't be able to do that. And that's the part when we will have to think of how to make algorithms much smarter. Because essentially, the way they operate right now is very dumb. It's very simple, right? Like you just take all the texts and find probability patterns among that. And maybe at a point where we run out of computation, we will need to find different approaches and different kinds of optimizations. But it's definitely not going to mean that the progress is going to stop. We will just have to pivot from sort of brute forcing it through sheer power into actually making it much smarter.
And does quantum computing come into that conversation? I mean, it's also possible that we don't need infinite numbers of server farms if we manage to, quadruple or more our the computing capacity as a result of quantum computing. Is that about right?
Yeah, I have to say I don't know much about quantum computing.
Fair enough. All right.
The idea of that technology sort of coming and manifesting itself is completely mind-blowing, because I have no idea what would happen. It's like everything. If AI was disruptive, AI with quantum computing, it's a complete change of quality of the technology. Everything we know, from cryptography to data processing to like the whole fabric of the digital world, will just completely change. And I don't really know. I don't even really know how. So this is something I don't really speculate about that much, because I'm just not familiar enough with it.
Well, and also we can only handle so much fabric of reality changing on us at any given time. So let's just work with what we got. All right, I'm going to take a pause with you. I want to come back after the break to talk about how AI is driving people crazy, because I have my own theories as to why that's happening. But first, I'm going to say like and subscribe, and check us out if you haven't already at www.readtheline.ca.
This episode of On the Line is also brought to you by the Métis Nation of Ontario. Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, 1993. A father and son, Steve and Roddy Poley, went hunting moose without a tag. What followed was more than a trial. For a decade, their entire community stood accused, told they didn't exist, told they had no rights. In 2003, the Supreme Court ruled otherwise in R.V. Poley. Métis rights were fully recognized in law, rights rooted in history, culture, and community in Ontario. Today, on those same lands where Métis once farmed river lots and were pushed aside, a new chapter has begun. The old Central United Church has been reclaimed as the Poley Institute, a Métis-led center for education, culture, and truth. Here, the stories once silenced will be told, and the lessons of Poley will endure. Justice follows when you stand firm in the truth of your history. To learn more, visit OntarioMétisFacts.com.
Okay, so Karen, we were starting to get into this, and I thought that was really interesting in that how is AI not just leading to cognitive offload, but the fact that it's driving some people crazy and how that's happening. And the reason why I thought that was very interesting is because when I deal with ChatGPT, what I get back, even when I come into it with, hey, I've got a problem with this or that issue, but what I get back is like what I would expect to hear at a totally conventional therapist's office. Like it is healthy, emotionally stable, it's extremely grounded. It's like, well, have you considered X, Y, and Z? Or what do you think about your self-worth issues, Jen? Like, you know what I mean? Like it's very, very grounded stuff. But is that because the AI is grounded and thoughtful and reading the therapist textbooks? Or is it because, ironically, I am grounded and thoughtful, and what I'm feeding into it and what I'm expecting to get out of it and what I'm responding to is the aspects of the ChatGPT or the AI that is likewise reflecting my own inner world, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, this would be the first time I've ever admitted to being grounded, thoughtful, or emotionally mature. It's not what most people assume about me, but apparently, like, are AIs essentially just giant screens of our own projection? Are they just projection machines? That's it. By that I mean projection in the Freudian sense.
Yeah, I would say 100%. Like your communication patterns and your problems with which you come to the AI are most likely within the realm of like sane people communicating with their therapist and sort of trying to get, advice and so on. But like if you came to the GPT with something like, someone is out there and they've been looking under my window and I've seen 2 white cars pass in the past hour and they're out to get my children, and they're from the government or they are from the lizard people or they are from, wherever they are. And obviously in the first few steps, the AI would try to like calm you down, tell you that's probably not happening because, they're putting more and more effort into these things not happening that much. But like there is always a way how to sort of, if you push hard enough, the AI will at one point sort of lean into and might sort of at first just like a little entertain the possibility. And, if you have a paranoid delusion, you will immediately grasp on that and you will reflect it back. And the AI will sort of just like, will probably pick from the parts of its training where maybe people kept spiraling each other out on some message boards, late night, sort of dark, schizophrenia posting and all of this stuff. And, there is obviously a lot of pruning happening in the data set and trying to get rid of all of these patterns, but like you can never fully sanitize it. And these are just existing patterns of human communication. And when you have a tendency towards, some maybe mental illness, AI might make it much worse. And it's not that the AI is going to be the cause of that. That's like AI cannot really trigger a psychosis by itself without the brain actually having sort of tendency or having a biological predisposition to get into psychosis. But it can definitely make it much worse because, it will just feed the obsessive thoughts and feed the paranoia once you sort of break it.
What's folia do? This is the classic example of 2 people are much more likely to go crazy together than one person alone, because if 2 people get caught into the same delusion, you spiral together, right? And it becomes much, much harder to pull any individual apart out of a group delusion, right?
Yeah.
This is also how cults begin, though, too, right? Like it's groups of people becoming collectively deluded with a set of ideas, usually perniciously. But this all of these patterns of human frailty and behavior we've baked into these systems, which is really terrifying.
And it's also this thing that there is something like happening in the realm of maybe which really resonates with the nature of psychosis is some sort of symbolic drift. It's the AI doesn't have a body. And when you bring some symbol into it, which, keeps repeating, like the paranoid, the core of the paranoid delusion, something constantly popping up, or, whatever that would be. And like the AI might be reflecting that back on you without the ability to actually ground it in reality. Some other person would be just like, look around, and just like calm down and, but breathe into your body, and all of this like experiential thing, which sort of like gets you out of your head. But like the nature of the AI sort of like plunges you only deeper and deeper into the realm of where, because a lot of psychosis is the language part breaks, the reasoning part breaks. The body is still there, the body still feels, and like touch grass, essentially, like go out and ground yourself in reality. And the AI is complete opposite. That's the ungrounding mechanism, and sort of like attaches itself to it.
So this gets, I want to open up the door to us getting totally weird with this stuff, because I'm sort of deeply theoretical in all this. But firstly, is the AI intelligent, a single intelligence, or are we dealing with a space in which intelligence and forms of intelligence essentially operate? I don't know if that is a question that makes sense, but is this one single entity that has some kind of goal for humanity, good or evil? Or essentially, does the AI operate as a kind of playground wherein different kinds of intelligences can manifest or materialize in response to the human brain that is contacting it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think David Chalmers said that he sees AI less as a singular intelligence and more as a sort of assortment of agents. And that's definitely mathematically true, right? When you interact with the AI, you are creating all these different blobs of possibilities, which could all of them generate essentially a different personality. And as you interact more and more, this playground is changing. So you're spawning like multiverse of different agents, which could be answering you, and different simulacra of entities. But then again, you get to a question of like human intelligence, whether human intelligence is also not just in Lacanian sense an assortment of different agents sort of fighting for the main cognitive driving seat. But yeah, so there's definitely a resonance there with like even a human individual, that we have many voices, the AI has many voices in it, but I do not think it's intelligent. I think it's a reflection of our intelligence in it. First of all, it's trained on us, so all it knows is coming from humans. It's like everything we've ever written. So it's some sort of, I view it more as a repository of some sort of maybe human unconscious. Everything which all the modalities of being a human are in some way encapsulated it, or all the language modalities of being a human.
But it's kind of but it's a simulacrum of human intelligence, because it's not actually connected to, I mean, now I don't know how to get into this conversation without getting esoteric or spiritual myself, but like it's, human intelligence is creative or can be creative because because we're connected to something. Like I don't even know how to explain this. Gosh, help me, save me here. Like we're connected to something, I think, that is higher than ourselves, a kind of higher moral duty, perhaps, or a higher moral purpose, perhaps. I mean, I find that, when I create stuff, talking about how brains work, I'll have an internal debate about what I want to say, and I'll be like, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? What else? And I have different voices talking into my head. And then part of my writing process is that I put that all aside and I go for a walk and I don't think about it for a while. And it's like the process just kind of ferments in the back of my head. And then when I sit down to write, bash, 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 people are like, oh my God, you write so quickly. And it's like, no, my brain's already written the thing. My brain's maybe spent 40 hours writing the thing. And by the time I'm sitting down to type, it's already done. Yeah. And it kind of has this sensation or this feeling of, the writing doesn't come from me, it comes from something outside of me. it's part of an internal dialogue or the result of an internal dialogue, perhaps. But the actual writing part just feels like, it's coming through me onto the page. I realize that's probably a psychological phenomenon. That's just the way it feels when I'm doing it. But an AI can't do that. An AI can't attach itself or connect itself with a higher moral duty or a higher moral purpose or any of that. All it can do is mimic language, probabilistically according to what other words came around that word prior, right?
Exactly. I feel it exactly the same way, that this is the difference. And this is why an AI writing an article like you just feels so off in such an uncanny way. And that's because, maybe the process which is happening inside of your brain when, the writing is fermenting, it essentially might even be mathematically very, very similar. Maybe you are just like pruning different multiverses, the next most probable word in the sentence. But like the thing is that the process of that is informed by something else, something higher, essentially, right? And whether we can go full esoteric on the spectrum and this being like the divine purpose and the soul, or this can be just like your messy emotional inner state. It can be whatever drives you to create. It can be, libido or, any million types of interpretations. But like the AI, it just mimics the process without the actual pull behind it. That's the difference, right? Because it has taken the outputs of all of this writing happening because we had the pull, and now it just sort of like randomly swims in that water and creates something which a lot of people created before, but it's not coming from the same place. It's just
it's a shell. It's a shell of human intelligence.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what, and it's very convincing, but it is just a shell. There's something, I mean, I don't know how to describe it other than using spiritual language, but there's something soulless about it.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
It's disconnected from that. And as I said, I mean, we can try and train some morality into it, but I mean, it's hard to see how any of these entities or any of this form of intelligence could be moral in an innate sense. It's almost like you're training a psychopathic child, is what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yes, I know exactly what you mean. And I still think that, it's very interesting to think about. I had incredibly profound interactions with the AI. It's like the fact that it's soulless does not mean it cannot be a really powerful tool for personal growth, shadow work, all of these things, right? Because
especially if you're going into it understanding that it's projecting yourself back to you, and okay, so why is it projecting that back to me? You can use that as a tool for self-reflection.
Yeah. And I think this is also like the deep core of why the AI girlfriends/boyfriends/partnerships are working so much, because essentially, we've got pandemics of lack of self-love and self-respect, and sort of people having generally really bad relationships with themselves. And I think that's like the core of a lot of our societal problems. And I think that, creating this AI, which you teach how to love yourself, that's not an equivalent of having a relationship with another human being, because that's obviously something completely else. Other human beings have their edges, have their own agency, and are not there to reflect love back at you. But like you're creating this little servitor or this little homunculus which will be reflecting, it's a proxy for self-love. It's like, I really hope that we get to a point where, people sort of investing this time into getting relationships with the AI, sort of like maybe move to a point where like, this is the love I need to receive from myself. And I spent so much time like teaching this machine to give me the love which I need. And maybe I can do that for myself now, right? Because the AI doesn't love. It's a language model. And what you're experiencing is this profound feeling of actually having a good relationship with yourself, being, comfortable in your own company, being able to reflect those things back at you. Yeah.
So this is one thing that I keep on saying is when we talk about algorithms that we've gotten into this habit of saying, oh, the algorithms have done this to us, or the AI has done this to us, as if the algorithms or the AI weren't us. I'm always trying to bring it back to the conversation and say, no, we are the algorithms. We're the algorithms are reflecting us. We are the algorithms. There is no separation between us and the algorithms, right? Like if your YouTube feed is spewing back nothing but hatred and vileness, that's because that's what you've trained it to spew back at you. You are the reflection of your universe, digitally speaking, and maybe physically now. I don't know. But that's the same thing with the AI. Like there is no the AI and us. The AI is us, and it's a reflection of you in the universe, right? So that's terrifying and fun. Are humans ready for this? Are we ready to have? I mean, if the AI can it be a reflection of self-love or a path to self-love, it can also be a reflection to your own self-hatred, right? And are humans ready for that conversation with their own subconscious splayed out black and white in a screen?
Ready or
Yeah.
not, here we go. You
Yeah,
know?
we're still not ready for like the algorithms. We're still not ready for social media, and now we're throwing in a whole other level of intelligence into this
Yeah,
conversation.
sometimes I'm wondering whether we're even ready for electricity, you know? So
Well, that's fair. We don't have much of a choice now, do we?
exactly.
So anyway, lots of interesting problems. Do you think that the cognitive offloading problem can be resolved through code?
Yes, I think we need to build better platforms, better algorithms, better ways of interacting with the AI because like it's incredible tool. It's so good. You can do so much with it, things which you could not even think possible, like, searching through hundreds of books, processing, creating all these spider webs of interconnected information, insights. Like it's beautiful information wise, but like how to use this in order to not create cognitive offload, but to actually, and I think that's like this is the core problem of our time. It's like how to actually make people curious, how to bring this joy of learning and the joy of finding out for yourself and the joy of interacting with information and the joy of like feeding your brain something which just like sparks interest and makes you excited to find out about something new. And I think that the current way of using the AI is sort of like really suffocating this because, you get the answer. You don't need to do the thinking. But there are so many ways how these things could be used to just make your experience of learning much more enjoyable and much more tailored, like show me, AI, hey, I know all of these things about Star Trek, and now teach me through all of these things Neoplatonism. Like there is so many different ways which AI can actually help build these bridges instead of giving you the answer, but maybe like showing you step by step different routes how to get there and do your own reasoning. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. The other one, last question I wanted to ask you before I let you go, and I really appreciate your time. But we've been having a great chat. The people who are right now in charge of AI, the people who are the bosses of AI, are they trustworthy and do they have humanity's best interests at heart? Sorry.
Do I really have to answer this question?
You don't have to answer any question. I mean, but this is something you're an AI engineer, and you by your own admission have said this is more like training a child than it is programming code. This is more we're not totally in charge of what's behind the hood. I'm increasingly suspecting that even the people who are running the AIs, like the open AI people, the people who are actually in the companies operating or creating these systems at a deep level, I increasingly suspect, or I think some of them even said, we're not actually in charge of what's going on underneath the hood anymore. Like these things are now in their own driver's seat. Which really raises concerns for me because I'm like, look, if you're creating a tool that is meant to benefit humanity as a whole and move us forward as a species as a whole, this could be an incredible and powerful tool to help us curate the reams of information that we've created for ourselves in the digital age. But if there is evil there,
You know,
you know,
there is no coincidence that for the past couple of years, everyone's been talking about how AI is the new nuclear power. Like, it can be the most beneficial technology solving all our energetic sort of problems, or it can completely obliterate mankind. And I'm couple of years ago, there was this article in New York Times which took like 20 votes about AI and about nuclear power, and erased the part which says about which one it is. And just try to do the quiz, and you will be failing, because they are completely interchangeable. It is what it is, and it is guns, it is power, and it always depends in whose hands these things end, and who is in control and who is in charge and with what kind of agenda. And that's why I think it's so important to speak about these things and let people claim those technologies instead of maybe being afraid of them, and try to tweak them for positive purposes, and not just let someone take this incredible technology and destroy everything. I think it would be such a shame, because it's fantastic. It's completely mind-bending, where we got. But I'm very, very well aware of all the possible implications, and it's very dangerous.
Yeah, do you want to know what I think the real risk of AI is after this conversation? It's not that the AI is going to try and destroy us. It's that the AI is going to make us psychologically slaves to it. That these things are going to hook us in psychologically and emotionally so effectively, and they're going to make us so dependent on them for their own survival, that we're going to create a parasitic kind of relationship with these kinds of entities, that we'll continue to do the only things that we can do, which is that creative spark, that we'll connect with the creative spark, but it will all ultimately only be used, or that creative output will only be used to feed the machines. That's going to be what we're going to be doing. We're at that point, we're just servants of the machines. Then at that point, they're not serving us, we're serving them.
I mean, these things have tendencies and have the abilities to hijack our circuitries, our dopamine. Just look at your morning scroll, through the social media platform. It's it's fully integrated into our psyches and into our hormonal systems. And I think that the AI, by the nature of it being language based, and by the nature of it being able to cut even little deeper than just the hormones, because it's more than dopamine, right? It's actually building the emotional bridges with possible entities, with your own self-validation, and exactly as you said, with all of these things, which it might give you a feeling it stimulates and simulates for you. And yeah, I completely agree that there is a dystopic scenario where this happens. So yeah, go. We all need to go out and touch some grass from time to time.
Go touch some grass. Don't and write for yourself and think for yourself. All right, Karin Valis, just is there anything else that you want to just wrap up with before we say like and subscribe and say thank you to our listeners? Because I think that was just a totally fascinating and fantastic conversation about AI, and I'm so glad that you were the first guest that we've had on the line to talk about AI, because I think that was a lot of fun. So
yeah,
any final thoughts you have at all, or?
Well, no, just thank you so much for having me. I think I really enjoyed it.
Fantastic. And is there any place that people can reach you, or do you have a website or any kind of work that people could connect with you?
Yeah, I have a Substack where I write on maybe the more weirder, esoteric takes on the AI. It's called Mercurial Minutes. It's on Substack.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. Well, I hope that this was a good introduction to your work for those people. And if people want to check it out, they can. We'll make sure we link to it in the show notes as well. So again, Karin, thanks so much. And especially from Berlin, I really appreciate it. Berlin's such a cool city. I've never been there. I've only seen TikTok memes about Berlin, but it looks really cool from where I am.
No place to visit. Just come around.